Welcome into the Boston Sports Summit. I am your host, Tim Barnett, and we are presented by the Grid Network. So, what a wild week it's been. We have the Patriots winning 7 straight. They are 8-2, heading into tonight's game versus the Jets. And then after tonight, they got a nice extended bye, mini bye. And also the Bruins. They have won 7 straight since I came on this show and said that they're not a good hockey team. So, what do you know? Maybe they are. But when it comes to the Bruins, are they good enough to become a playoff contender? How do you build a playoff contender in hockey? We'll talk about that. And also, the NFL has filed a grievance against the NFLPA for their report cards. Why? And why now? We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But of course, first and foremost, we got to get to the most important topic in sports, which is the 8-2 New England Patriots. They're 8-2. I've been saying they're back. You've been saying they're back. The mainstream media, the mainstream sports media has been saying they are back. Rich Eisen has talked about why the Pats can win the Super Bowl. Damian Woody saying that the AFC is going to run through Foxborough, etc., etc. What? Like, everybody's talking about it. And so I've got 3 questions for you. Number 1, is the number 1 seed in the AFC a realistic achievement for this Patriots team? Number 2, if they don't get the number 1 seed, is that a disappointment? Okay, would you see as not getting the number 1 seed a disappointment? Not a we should have had it, or that we were predicting it all year. No. Just right now, just a disappointment. Which leads into the third question. As fans, are we allowed to adjust or change our views on what this team can and should accomplish? Because we're sitting pretty right now. Yes, we technically are third in the AFC playoff picture behind the Broncos and Colts. But when you look at their schedules compared to ours, it's the Broncos still have to play the Chiefs twice. The Colts have to play the Chiefs. They're playing much tougher competition than we will for the rest of the year. Granted, we are going to be playing the Bills. We're going to be playing the Ravens. We're going to be playing a probably Joe Burrow-less Bengals. But they still have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. So that's not necessarily a bad pickup. But yes, after this game, we're going to be in Cincinnati. We're going to be home against Buffalo in Week 15. And then in Week 16, we're going to be in Baltimore. And Baltimore's had a rocky road, but they're still in the hunt at 4-5. It's not like this AFC playoff picture is closed, shut, done. You can't get in at 4-5, 5-4 currently. So is the number 1 seed, going back to my first question, is the number 1 seed a realistic achievement for this Patriots team? I say yes. Yes, it absolutely is. We have the easiest strength of schedule remaining, and for the entire year. We've taken advantage of it to the point where I came on this show and talked about how winning 12 games was doable, but in a kind of crazy way. So now that we're sitting here actually 8-2, I don't see how not attaining the number 1 seed is out of the realm of possibility. I mean, when you look at when you look at the Broncos and the Colts, okay, let's just say those are the two teams we're going to be going against for the number one seed. When you look at the Colts, yes, they have a hell of an O-line. They have a hell of a run game with Jonathan Taylor, who is quite frankly in the running for MVP and should be one of the top two guys. Not even top three. I think he's top two, behind Drake May, of course, in MVP voting, as he should be. And depending on how the rest of the season plays out, could be the MVP. But you have that team, which has a good defense, not a great one, a good one, and they still have to play tough competition. While also looking at Denver, who's got a stout defense. Yes, Patrick Surtain has been hurt, and that has affected their defense. No two ways about it. But do you trust Bo Nix every single week? Do you trust that offense? Because when they played the Vegas Raiders on Thursday Night Football last week, holy cow, was that an atrocious football game. Offensively, at least. Atrocious. Something where you're looking at going, okay, which Denver Broncos offense are we going to get? Not to mention, they're in the hottest division in the AFC. So there's a lot going to that. On top of the fact that when you look at us, sure, do we have a little bend in our defense? What are there games and times where Drake May isn't at 100% in terms of his play ability? Yeah. But does everything seem to be coming up the Patriots? Right? Everything is turning up Patriots. Everything. And it's great. It's unbelievable. You have plays like the Kyle Williams touchdown, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I just want to say, though, he wanted to throw that to Mac Hollins, and then out of nowhere just hits Kyle Williams in stride while getting hit, and he takes off for the 72-yard touchdown. It was crazy. So I do think the number one seed in the AFC is a realistic accomplishment. And I agree that if they don't get the number one seed, it will be a disappointment. Now, it's not the be-all, end-all. It's not that I'm going to sit here and say, we should have had it, that was ours, this, that, and like all of these things where I was expecting to have the number one seed at the start of the year. I wasn't. Wasn't even close. So to even win the division is huge in terms of where this team was at the start of the year to where they are now. So am I going to be disappointed? Yes, if they don't get the number one seed. But if they still win the division, I'm very happy with that. Of course I am. So then going on to my third question, which again, I want you to comment down below. What are your answers to these questions? Is the number one seed in the AFC a realistic achievement? If they don't get it, will you be disappointed if they don't get that number one seed? And then 3, as fans, are we allowed to adjust or change our views based on what this team has accomplished up to this point? We're at week 11 in just under 3 hours. Week 11 is about to start in the NFL season out of 18. So I say that, yes, we should be able to adjust our viewpoints because the way this team has played and exceeded expectations has been one of the situations I never expected. Did you expect Drake May to complete over 74% of his passes this season? Did you expect his deep ball to be the best deep ball in the NFL? Did you expect that Drake May, working with this group of wide receivers, was going to accomplish what they've accomplished this season? No. at least not at the start of the year. And if you say that you did, you're lying to yourself. I'm sorry. Like, come on. I jokingly laughed, and I'll point that out later, but I jokingly laughed that winning 12 games was a way too early prediction because, granted, I didn't make it in June, but even still. One thing you'll never hear me say when making predictions at the start of the year or adjusting it, as the season goes on, is you will never hear me say that we should win the Super Bowl. The closest you'll ever hear me say to that is we should get to the Super Bowl. Unless you're the LA Dodgers, obviously, and you bought every great player of this generation and kind of cheated the system a little bit to do so, then I would say you should win the World Series every year. But in terms of the Patriots and adjusting our views before the year, mid-season, and so on, looking at it, the closest you'll ever hear me say is that we should make the Super Bowl. Like, that's how wide open this field is, basically. I mean, as I've pointed out a couple of times in this playoff picture, look who's in the hunt. Kansas City and Baltimore. Two of the toughest teams in the conference are not in the playoff picture if the playoffs were to start today. Which is crazy to think about. But there's still a lot of season left to be played. Again, week 11 out of 18. So the deep playoff run, I think, is a real factor in this. And adjusting our views doesn't mean we should forget where our views were at the start of the season, like this team, because if we forget that, winning 8 games, 9 games was realistic, and then saying they're going to win 10, 11, 12 was a freaking pipe dream or fantasy, or things are just going to have to go our way. And then once the season gets played and you're already at week 11 and you're sitting there at 8-2, I think it's absolutely reasonable to say that this team should make a deep playoff run. But one of the things that drives me nuts, and I hear this from some of the media pundits, I hear this from some of the fans who are calling into sports talk radio. One of the things that drives me nuts is we're sitting here at 8-2, and everyone wants to say the rest of the year is just gravy. Everything is just chill. It's, hey, no matter what happens, look at how good we've done. If we don't get the number 1 seed and we get bounced in the wild card, hey, that's okay, because look at how good Drake May was playing. Look at how good this team was playing. Is that okay to have? Because I look at that as a loser's mentality. I look at that as somebody who's telling you that whatever happens from here on out, it's just gravy. Because now we know what we have. Well, do we know what we have? Because the only way we're going to know what we have is at the end of the season. Because if we play, the rest of the games out, and we have what? 3, 6, 7. We have 7 games left. If we go 4-3 over those 7 games, are you going to be okay with that? Are you going to sit here and say that, oh, the rest of the season is just gravy because, we went 12-5. And then we got bounced in the AFC wildcard. God forbid, obviously. I don't want that. But no, that's a loser's mentality. We should be looking and turning our heads to expecting a deep playoff run because we know this team is capable of that type of performance based on everything they've done, based on going up to Buffalo Sunday night, and for lack of a better word, kind of kicking their ass. Of course, it was a close game. We won on a last-second field goal, but it was a good game, and it showed, just how good this team can be. And then to go into Tampa on Sunday, another very good team in the NFC, and to beat them the way we did. And they had an extra week to prepare for you. So, yes, I think looking at it as, hey, the rest of the season is just gravy, is a loser's mentality. If you want this team to be the team of the future, to be, of course, it'll never live up to this, but if you want this team to be the Brady-esque Patriots, that were making deep playoff runs year after year after year, and you say the Patriots are back, well, then that's going to have to play out in January and hopefully February. And with the way this AFC conference is stacked right now, it's wide open. Wide open. Do you trust Daniel Jones as the Colts quarterback, or are you going to get the New York Giants Daniel Jones quarterback? When is that pumpkin going to finally pop? Denver. Which offense is Denver going to show? They got a very good defense, but their offense is it's good enough. Pittsburgh. They are riding a freaking roller coaster. Justin Herbert and the Chargers. Do you trust them right now? Do you see Justin Herbert as the guy? I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a big Justin Herbert fan, but the Chargers and their history aren't something that you can really rest your laurels on. Buffalo. They got shellacked by Miami on Sunday. The biggest upset, I think, of Sunday was the Dolphins beating the Bills, which now gives us an extra game on Buffalo. And then the last playoff team is Jacksonville right now. Do you really trust the Jaguars to compete and to compete and make that deep playoff run? No. The only three teams I am in fear of come January are Buffalo, and then Kansas City and Baltimore, both of which, if the playoffs started today, aren't even in. Will that play out? Who knows? But I think that this team turning heads, this team changing predictions, from the start of the season till now, I think is absolutely in play. And again, I've referenced this several times, but here's the actual video of me making my predictions. Take a listen. The Patriots, as currently constituted, should beat a lot of these teams. After looking at the schedule, after putting it together, after looking at all the teams, call me crazy, but I think this team should win 12 games. On paper, and the way Drake May performed, I think this team should do pretty good to start the season. I really do. So you're going to go, 8-1 through the first 9 weeks of the season. 8-1. Ladies and gentlemen, the Patriots are going 12-5 this season. That's right. So I like what I see. I think Vrabel is definitely the coach we needed. My God, what a disaster last year was. Disaster. Exactly. I'm laughing in a way that's just showing you I wanted to buy into the 12 wins, but I couldn't. And the fact that I said they'd go 8-1 to start the year. 8-1, and we're 8-2. And we beat the team that I thought we were going to lose to. Like, hello, like this is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And not for nothing, I said 8-1 to start. Up to this point, I said we were going to lose to Tampa, which would have made us 8-2. Do I not know my stuff, or do I not know my stuff? So, frequent commenter, not Doug. They're already way ahead of what I expected. Let's go, Pats. Yeah, I think we can all agree to that. The only thing is, as I said, just because they're way ahead of what you expected, are you looking at the rest of the season as just gravy? Like, hey, they're already way ahead of schedule. Whatever happens the rest of the year, hey, it is what it is. Or do you want to have a winner's mentality and say, okay, we're 8-2. We're way ahead of what we expected. So let's put our foot to the floor, drill down that gas pedal, and let's make a deep playoff run. Let's go after that number 1 seed. Let's get that bye. Let the rest of those guys figure out what they're going to do in the wild card weekend. We'll see a divisional round weekend. Because that's what I want. I want them to go for that number 1 seed. And they should go for that number 1 seed. And they're good enough to go for that number 1 seed. And with the rest of the schedule for the other teams and the trust factor behind some of these players, it's very, very, very attainable to happen. And just one other side note, though, when looking at the rest of the schedule, the hardest is definitely going to be week 15 and 16. I think that's going to show, again, we've already talked about this a couple of times. Beating Buffalo in Buffalo on Sunday night was absolutely a test that they passed. Beating Tampa in Tampa has solidified what they did in Buffalo earlier in the season and showed that this team is a true contender. But if you want to know, now I'm adding another stipulation, but if you want to know if this team is for real, yes, they're obviously going to have to win tonight's game. We'll talk about that. But I'm just saying, if you want to know if this team is for real and that they are capable of doing what they've done all season and translate that over into January and potentially making the Super Bowl and even winning it, they are going to have to take at least one of those games. Buffalo and then at Baltimore. If they don't take one of those, then there are going to be some red flags that are going up for me come playoff time. Otherwise, this team is legit. How can we not? We can see that. I know you can see that. I can see that. This team is legit. They are a real playoff contender, especially with what they did in Tampa. And with what they did in Tampa, again, they proved me wrong. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. I thought Tampa was going to squeak by with a 4-point victory, 31-27. When in reality, the Patriots secured the victory with just over a minute and a half to go. And Tampa then drives down to get 7 on the board to make it 28-23. But that was just the final score. They have done something that I don't want to say surprised by, because I feel like surprise is like I didn't have any faith in them. No, of course I had faith in them. It was just that they had an extra bye. They did miss Chris Godwin and Bucky Irving, which is obviously a big deal for them. while also missing Mike Evans, but he was injured a while ago, so I don't necessarily include him in that. But, my buddy who's a big Tampa guy and the same buddy who's a Panther guy as well, Florida Panthers, he texted me, oh, this game would have been totally different if we had Evans, Godwin, and Irving. And, when I read that, I go, yeah, obviously. Of course it would have been a different game. But I don't necessarily think that you still blow us out of you blow us out of the building. It's not like having those three players would have given you the ammunition to fire off your cannons and sink our ships. No, I think it still would have been a good game. I still think it would have been a close game that it might have been a shootout. It might have been, somewhere between 31-27, 35-31, any of these types of scores, right? 45-38 even. But could the Patriots still have won that game had they had all three players? Of course they could have. That's the whole point. You play the team that's in front of you. You don't sit there and concern yourself with, oh, well, if we had our players, we would have, we could have beaten you. Yeah, well, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Injuries happen. It sucks because sometimes, yeah, you do want to see the best team go against the second best team to see who the best team is. So when injuries happen, it affects a lot and it sucks. Absolutely. But it was an interesting game, really, to say the least, because, of course, Tampa gets the ball, they march down, they score. Marcus Jones has that busting coverage, which wondering if it was Marcus Jones or Christian Gonzalez who screwed that up, because Marcus Jones was clearly playing zone. He clearly knew his assignment. Ibuka came up to him. He kind of gave a little shove, and Ibuka just broke out to his right, and Jones still had his head in the backfield. He was still looking at Baker Mayfield while Ibuka is just running over to his left, and no one is there because Gonzalez carried his man all the way up to the goal line until Ibuka caught it and then just basically trotted into the end zone. So after that, the Patriots get the ball, and it starts to rain. Talk about just picture-perfect convenience that when Tampa doesn't have the ball, it's sunshine and rainbows. When the Patriots have the ball, it's rain, it's hot. And then, of course, we don't score. But I don't know. I thought that was pretty funny. One of the things, though, that I thought helped New England win this game was they did a pretty damn good job of setting the edge on Baker Mayfield, making sure that he couldn't scramble. Did he get out of the pocket a couple of times? Of course he did. He's always going to find a way to do that, especially for his shorter stature as a quarterback. He's, 6 feet, 6'1" tops? So he's on the shorter end, of course. The way to make him beat you is obviously keep him in the pocket and try to throw over the lineman. And not for nothing, the way Milton Williams and Kyrus Tonga were getting into the backfield, pushing the pocket back was phenomenal. The D-line setting the edge and also doing that was fantastic. It was great to see. And that's why, Baker never scrambled. And it's interesting because he's the type of guy where he needs to roll out. He needs to throw on the run. He needs to create that type of, play. But the last 3 games, he hasn't scrambled for a single yard, and they've gone 1-2 in these last 3 games, including coming off a bye. As I said last week, Todd Bowles' teams coming off a bye aren't good. They're not that good. Why, I don't know, but hey. Then I want to get to, the end of the half. Massive turn of events. Again, you want to talk about momentum swing? the end of the half was a huge, huge momentum turner favoring New England, which was kind of surprising in a sense because looking at the end of the half, they get down to the 1-yard line and they call a quarterback sneak knowing that Tampa Bay had no timeouts with roughly around $1:47 to I think $1:55 remaining in the half. They call a quarterback sneak, and Drake May, even though he says he tried to score on that, clearly stood up and was just running into his lineman knowing full well that this was not going to work. It's almost like as soon as he snapped the ball, he realized that this play wasn't going to work and just said, screw it. And then just fell onto his ass, and there it is. But I know for myself, for Tony Romo, it clicked instantly. Did he even try? Did the Patriots purposely give up on first down in order to drain the clock? Because they ran it 2 more times. It wasn't until the 4th down where they actually threw the ball, which is something that I know a lot of Seattle Seahawks fans wish that Pete Carroll did in Super Bowl 49. But let's not forget the fact that he screwed up the timeout situation, which is why they had to throw the ball at some point on 2nd or 3rd down. Just saying. But to go for it on 4th down, when we'd finally gone to 4th down, I'm sitting there going, this is what I don't like about analytics. Kick the field goal, go and do it, tie game. We get the ball to start the second half. Let's go down, let's score, let's go up 7. The rest is history, right? We'll go from there. It was such a gutsy call to not only have to go for it, but to have Drake May in the shotgun to throw almost a back pylon fade to Stephon Diggs, where he had to go up, twist his body, and somehow come down with both feet right at the out of bounds marker on the side of the end zone. And it was wild because even when you watch that back, though, you can see Hunter Henry looking like he's going to run it out, but then cuts back in. And if Drake May drilled him in the chest, that would have been a touchdown because I think it was Winfield was on Diggs. The corner that was initially on Diggs but went to Hunter Henry due to the stack formation, as I talked about last week when Drake London was stacking with Darnell Mooney, which threw Gonzalez off of London, this, that, and the other. But when Hunter Henry's turning to come back in, there's a good 1.5 distance between him and the corner, and all Drake May had to do was just drill Henry right in the chest, and that would have been an easy touchdown, an easier touchdown. But this is why you have a guy like Stephon Diggs. With that play right there, you got to have it on top of the onside kick, him getting drilled and knocked out practically on the onside kick. But his hands were, boom, this ball is mine now. And I will say, it was interesting because then throughout halftime, I'm sitting there thinking to myself, why did they do what they did? What was the purpose, for that? And yes, I think the main argument we could sit here and say is, of course, the Patriots did it to drain the clock so that the Bucs didn't get an opportunity to at least get any points on the board, knowing full well the Bucs were out of timeouts. It was just under 2 minutes, and we have 4 chances from the 1-yard line to punch this in. And it took kind of a crazy play to do it, but they did it. And so, I want to say that the easy answer being they were afraid of Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers moving the ball down the field like they did at the end of the game after Travion Henderson scored that touchdown to seal the deal, right? But I'm wondering if there's another thought as to why they did that. If you have a reason, I'd love to hear it. Comment down below. By the way, don't forget to follow all the social medias right here down below. It takes a quick second, quick subscription. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. Would really love for you to just click subscribe and support the channel, support the show, and also this way. I'm doing this backwards. And don't forget to support the Grid Network. A bunch of great sports commentators, great guys. So if you could please do that. But again, thinking about that fourth down, what would we be saying if that didn't work? Right? What would we be saying? I know I'd sit here and absolutely rip Vrabel and the Patriots a new one for thinking that going for it on fourth down, throwing a very low percentage ball into the back corner like that was an absolutely atrocious play call. Would I press to have them run the ball again? No, because you keep running up the ball with Big Vita Vea right there. The dude is massive. Like, what are we thinking trying to punch it through when, of course, Jared Wilson, Garrett Bradbury, and Mike Owenu have not been perfect at run blocking like that, especially against a guy like Vea. So it's a really interesting point because you get all the praise when it works, but you also take the heat when it doesn't. And don't get me wrong, I'm pumped at work because we were able to get the double score, the 2 touchdowns there to go up 14. We were down 10-7, and then next thing you know, we're up 21-10. Like that in an instant. It felt great. But it was definitely a second guess for me. Because I'm looking at that as, is this the guts, that is making that call? Or is this the analytics saying you should go for this? And again, it worked. I'm not going to really, question it that much further, but it was just something where, this, when you fall down on first and goal like that at the 1, when you barely try, when you give up a down, does that bode well with the football gods and that say, hey, like you purposely gave up, now we're gonna pay you back, something like that. I don't know. It's all in jest, right? But the final stretch of plays that I want to say is, of course, the Buccaneers' second to last drive, where they're marching the ball. The ball's at our 27-yard line. It's 3rd and 3. Cade Otton gets lit up by Craig Woodson, and he obviously drops the ball for an incompletion. So it's 4th and 3 at the plus 27. And this is where Caleb did a tackle and stunt. So you have Milton Williams going up. Chason comes right around, shoots up the A-gap, and sacks Baker Mayfield. He tries to flip it off. They called it a sack, which, yeah, it was. But I just really wanted to point out the Milton Williams and his, the play design as well as his contribution to it, because when you go back, one of the best angles you'll see of this, and they even show it on the broadcast. If you don't have the all-22 film, you'll see it on the broadcast. Milton Williams is lined up in between the guard and the left guard and the left tackle, otherwise known as the B gap. And when he pushes, he goes straight up, where he takes up more of the left guard's body. So he's focused slightly more on the left guard, And obviously Tristan Wirfs, the left tackle, is backing up, focusing on Milton Williams until you have Craig Woodson, who shot down between Williams and Chason. You could see him walking down, and then the ball's hiked, and he runs up to then get the attention of the left tackle, Wirfs, which then now completely negates Wirfs being able to help out their left guard on Milton Williams. So when Chason wraps around the way he does, the left guard is trying to break off of Milton Williams to do something about Chason. He barely gets a hand on him, but Chason with a full head of steam, it just blows right by him because most of the left guard's energy is on Milton Williams. And Tristan Wirfs is worrying more about Craig Woodson coming on the safety blitz. And that's how Chason gets into the backfield. Not to mention Spillane standing right overhead of the center, fakes blitzing, but does so in a way that forces the center to drift to his right, away from the left guard, the left side of the line, allowing that massive hole for Chason to just come straight up through. I thought that play design for the tackle and stunt to work like that, along with Woodson coming in, was honestly a thing of beauty. Absolute beauty. And I had to sit there and just rewind it a couple of times, not to understand what was going on, but to just imagine coming up with this. You could not have run that any better. And such a key moment in the game to have it go the way it did, I thought was just picturesque beauty. Mona Lisa, the way the play was drawn up, unbelievable, which led to, of course, the turnover on downs. And then 2 plays later, Tampa's got 2 timeouts remaining on second and 10 with $1:43 remaining. And all of a sudden, he just bounces outside and is running up the sideline, which had to have been one of the funniest things that you or I have ever seen on a football field. The fact that he gets to the 25, the plus 25, the plus 20 yard line, somewhere around there, and you see his head immediately turn to look towards the sideline to ask them as he's running, what should I do? Should I go down or should I score? I know a lot of fantasy managers are probably freaking out going, score, you jacket, get your ass in the end zone. But they tell him to go score, and he just points up like towards the end zone, go, okay, and cuts inside. That's how fast he was running, which was insane, which was awesome and quite honestly hilarious. But I know this has been talked about a little bit, but let's just say he drops down somewhere around, before the 10-yard line. He cuts in the way he does and then just drops down. They tell him to go down. He goes down right before the 10-yard line. He would do that right around the minute 33 mark. Because at that moment, when I hit pause and he's in between the 20 and the 25 and looking towards the sideline, the very first time he does that, there's $1:35 left on the clock. So I'm giving him 2 more seconds. He drops down right before the 10-yard line, cuts inside, drops down. So $1:33, let's say, right? Then Tampa's going to burn their timeout. So it's going to be a minute 33, minute 32, just depending on when they blow the whistle and, when the timeout obviously comes in. But that's going to be their second to last timeout, which then Drake May will kneel it. They get $1:30, maybe $1:29, the latest, which now makes 2nd and 11. Tampa burns their timeout, so there's no timeouts remaining. And then another knee brings that down to around 50 seconds. If you drain the play clock all the way down, you get to around 50 seconds. And then you knee it again. That is around 48 seconds. So when it's fourth down and either fourth and goal or, fourth down just outside the 10, just before the 15, you're sitting there lining up for a field goal to put us up 8 points with a handful of seconds remaining. That's it. You're not going to get a lot of time left on the clock because it's going to drain 40 seconds. So you kick the field goal right around out. Hey, even for the sheer benefit, I'll say you kick the field goal at 11 to 12 seconds remaining. The Buccaneers are going to have under 10 seconds to get the kickoff, depending on how they kick it off, whether they squib it or they can't squib it technically, but whether you kick it in the field of play, that's going to drain some clock, while also they have under 10 seconds to march all the way down the field to score and then get the 2-point conversion. So either way, to anyone saying, oh, he should have taken the knee, or that scoring was, the wrong thing to do, or that scoring was the right thing to do, it honestly didn't matter based on the clock, based on the timeout situations. It didn't matter. And the fact that he scored, hey, good for the kid. And if you had him in fantasy and you started him, good for you. You just got another 69-yard touchdown. All right? So those to me were just some of the big plays of this game, and what they were able to do and what they were able to accomplish was fantastic. And talking about the game, of course, now, I want to talk about some of the big plays of the game that really, again, you can sit there and talk about, question, and say, was this the right thing to do? Was it not? Did they make the right decision to have Henderson score? The play design was perfect. But with that, we're going to go right into the game day grades. So starting with A's. There were a lot of guys, I think that deserved A's, but if I was going to be easy or a tough grader, I gave A's to Travion Henderson, Jack Gibbons, Kyrus Tonga, and Milton Williams. So, of course, talking about Travion Henderson, his 69-yard run, he also had the 55-yarder just coming out of the half. So that put us up 21-10. 14 carries, 147 yards, 10.5 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. He tried. It's funny because both those touchdowns came on him bouncing to the outside. They were mostly inside runs that he bounced to the outside. I think the 55-yarder was an outside run, but he kind of cut it in short and then bounced out and got all the way. Otherwise, yeah, phenomenal game from Travion. His breakout game. Now, hopefully that spurs something in him, that it keeps him going. But awesome job from Travion. Then Jack Gibbons was everywhere, I felt, on Sunday. When it came defensively, him getting, tackles, because he had 10 total tackles, led the team, 5 solo tackles, 1 tackle for loss, getting into the backfield. And that 1 pass deflection, he nearly had that interception on him, diving to his left. And then, he was there, multiple pressures on the quarterback. That's huge. That's what disrupts the flow. And when Baker's trying to step up in the pocket, bam, we're right there. Which is why I also had Kyrus Tonga and Milton Williams. Friggin' Tonga truck, man. Kyrus Tonga not only crushing it on the D-line, forcing the line of scrimmage backwards, collapsing the pocket, but also being the best fullback that this team has had since friggin' Heath Evans? Loved you, Heath. You were awesome. And now we got Kyrus Tonga, D-line, converted fullback. Let's keep the ball rolling, man. We all know Mike Vrabel's contributions to the offense. I don't mind it. Let's keep it rolling. And then Milton Williams. I talked about the big play and how instrumental he was on that 4th and 3 sack at the 27. That was huge. So Milton Williams, great game. Kyrus Tonga, Jack Gibbons, Travion Henderson, great games. Then for B's, doesn't mean that these guys had great, doesn't mean that they didn't have great games. I thought a bunch of guys had great games today, or on Sunday. But B's, Stephon Diggs, Matt Collins, Kayvon Chason, and Drake May. Now, starting with Drake May, this is controversial in a sense. Do we win that game without Drake May on Sunday? No, we do not. Absolutely not. Drake May was massive in why we won that game on Sunday. No two ways about it. But statistically, when you look at his numbers, it was not his best game. Going 16 for 31, just barely above 50% completion percentage. For 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, a 55 QBR, and an 89.4 passer rating. His first passer rating under 100 since, I think, week 1. So, Drake May, on paper, did not have a great day. And this is why I tell you, what the numbers say doesn't equal the performance. Just because you can sit here and read a box score to me and say, man, Drake May sucked on Sunday, I'd tell you to watch the game again and tell me that he sucked, because he didn't. Drake May was a massive part of the reason why we won that game. And when you want to talk about that one interception, was it a bad throw? Absolutely. But I want to take you to a couple plays before that where he got his bell rung right on the sideline, and they didn't call it. Now, yes, was he inbounds? Of course. Was it, by the letter of the law, a late hit? No, it was not. But did the defender hit Drake May with his chin on the crown of the helmet? Yes, he did. And have we seen plays like that in the NFL get called? Because he was clearly giving himself up. He was being wrapped up, and it was considerably slowing down. There was no reason to rock him the way we did, outside of just saying, we need to get this guy out of the game because he's kicking our ass. And we know we'll be better if they throw in, I can't even think of our friggin' backup quarterback. I was going to say Jacoby Brissett, but I'm like, wait, nope, he's not on it. Josh Dobbs. They're going to be, considerably worse with Josh Dobbs at quarterback, so we need to get Drake May out of the game. Hence, that late hit. Well, late hit, I should say, because technically it wasn't late. He was still in bounds. The thing that bothers me is, first, Drake May, have we seen calls like that get made in the NFL? Yes, we have. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Those guys get the calls. And I've heard talks throughout the week, when are the refs going to treat Drake May like the rest of those quarterbacks? Which, to me, I want to sit there and go, yeah, when's that going to happen? That should already happen. Drake May's a superstar, this, that, and the other. But then I started thinking about it, going, well, you either call it or you don't. I don't care if it's Drake May, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or even Joshua Dobbs. If that is a call that is made by NFL officials for certain players, you either call it for everybody, and I'm talking quarterbacks specifically, not everyone else, but you either call that for every quarterback or you don't call it at all, because Drake May was still in bounds. If you want to add the targeting rule, if you want to change the whole crown of the helmet tackle or issue, that can be discussed. That can be talked about, which, if you're calling it that, I would agree. That would be the definition of targeting. He was leading with the crown of the helmet, clearly socked him right underneath the chin. And you could even argue that that is what led to the interception. The next play I think it was 2 plays later. 2 plays later, Drake May was trying to hit Matt Collins scrambling to his right. And the funny part is, at the start of the play, the design, he had Matt Collins open on his first read. If he caught the ball, dropped back, looked, and fired, right, coming off his back foot, he plants his back foot and fires, he would have had Matt Collins wide open in the back of the end zone, just to the left of the field goal post. But because Drake May, I don't know what was he thinking. I don't know if he was slightly concussed from that hit, which is why it kind of was delayed that half a second. But because of that, he started scrambling to his right. Even on the scramble, he had Matt Collins open. When you see the All-22 film from the back of the end zone, you see Matt Collins had a step on his guy, and Drake May, when he threw the ball, threw it behind. So Matt Collins had to slow down to cut up to try to go get the ball, but it fed right into Jamel Dean's hands. That's why he threw the interception. Had Drake May led Hollins towards the side of the end zone, Matt Collins would have had to lean forward, make the catch, keep his feet in bounds, and it would have been a touchdown. And it would have been a fairly easy touchdown. But Drake May threw the ball behind him. That's what led to the interception. So, otherwise, speaking of Matt Collins, I thought both him and Stephon Diggs had great games on Sunday. Just how they played. Obviously, I talked about Stephon Diggs with that phenomenal halftime 4th down touchdown, as well as him being able to hold on to the ball after getting rocked on that excellent onside kick by the Buccaneers, which I know onside kicks don't get recovered by the kicking team often, but that was a perfect kick for that to happen, especially with how Diggs took that hit. But Matt Collins led the team, 6 receptions, 106 yards, and had that 54-yard long bomb up the right sideline, and it fed right into his breadbasket. And then, of course, Caleb Von Chason. He was in the backfield a lot, getting pressures. I feel like he's taking over and doing more in terms of getting pressures than Harold Landry is. Harold Landry's kind of disappeared the last couple of games. So, hoping after tonight's game, everything is going to be easier. They're going to take a break. They get the win, and they're all going to relax, and hopefully Landry can get back to pursuing the quarterback much better. All right, as for C's, I get end of the half situation. I already discussed this at length, but just to reiterate, I gave it a C because it worked out. Had it didn't work out, it would have been an F. It's just that simple. I mean, it's a gutsy play, and when you're talking about gutsy situations like that, don't get me wrong, it's great. You could tell the whole team was behind the call, just like going for 2 on 4th down or after a touchdown to win the game instead of kicking the extra point to tie and send to overtime. This was a situation where gutsy call by Vrabel, and it worked out. Very happy that it did work out and that we scored the touchdown off it, but that's why I give it a C. As for D's, I gave it to Jared Wilson, Marcus Jones. Marcus Jones, I said earlier that he lost his coverage on Ibuka, which is why Ibuka scored that 21-yarder to start the game. And you could argue that actually Marcus Jones was in the right. He was actually playing his position, and it was Christian Gonzalez who got carried away with his receiver playing more man versus the rest of the team playing zone. That's more for the coaches to sit there and dissect because they know what they called. They know what they were doing. Otherwise, the other thing is Marcus Jones dropped the punt. I understand he doesn't do that often, but he did recover it, and it was slippery conditions in Tampa. It was raining. It was humid. It's not going to be rainy and humid here in Foxborough as the winter months are coming on, but it's going to be snowing. It's going to be cold. The ball's going to get hot, and it might deflate. Oh, my God, it might deflate in January? Where have we heard that before? Otherwise, he just has to make sure he holds on to the football. At the end of the day, you got to hold on to the football. That's rule number one. Rule number one. So then also Jared Wilson, he got owned by Vita Vea. Like it was, I thought he was okay, but not great. There were plenty of times where the pocket was not being held up for Drake May, but also Drake May was getting rid of the ball quicker, and also the run game. It's almost like he couldn't do anything up the middle because both massive runs, Travion bounced to the outside of it. And so those guys got D's. And then for F, again, it was a hard game where I was really nitpicking, which is why, Jared Wilson and Marcus Jones are there. But for F's, I said special teams penalties because on back-to-back punt returns, we cost ourselves twice with 2 holding calls. Brennan Score held on in the first quarter, which had to start instead of from the New England 46-yard line, the minus 46, which is our 46-yard line. Instead, we got brought all the way back to R28. Luckily for us, it was the Kyle Williams touchdown, so it didn't matter. But that's a massive difference, starting nearly 20 yards from, 20-yard difference, either starting basically from midfield or deep in your own territory. So school has to clean that up. And then the next punt return we had in the second quarter, Charles Woods also got a holding penalty, and that got us, so from instead of us starting at our 14-yard line, we started from our own 7. And we ended up punting after 5 plays. And even though the box score will say it was a 4-play drive, it was because there was a PI call and the play was negated, which technically means there were 4 plays, not 5, even though 5 plays were run. So it's a whole thing. Otherwise, those are my game day grades. And checking our comments here, we got L. Mig Giaz saying May needs a clean game today and can't give a bad team any kind of life. Absolutely. And that's, go back to our game versus Atlanta. Our game versus Atlanta, I wouldn't have been surprised if we hung a 40, maybe even a 50 burger on them. It was that end of the half fumble where it threw everything off from there on out. The rest of the game, you could tell Drake May was in his head because of that fumble. And so I agree. We're going to talk about the Jets actually right now, but it was, thank you for that segue. It fit up perfectly because we are playing the New York Jets tonight to kick off Week 11 on Amazon Prime. 8-2 Patriots, home taking on the 2-7 Jets. And when looking at the players, they traded away Sauce Gardner. They traded away Quinnen Williams. Garrett Wilson is hurt. And they don't have a quarterback. Because you really think Justin Fields is their guy? Not even close. But I will give them credit. They still have Breece Hall, who I like as a running back. I think he's a very good 3-down running back. And they also have Will McDonald IV, who is very good at getting home, getting to the quarterback. That's his job as the edge guy. So those are a couple of plays that I would highlight to say, hey, if we're going to stop this team, our run defense, which has been elite all season, which just lost the 50-yard game, which sucks. But because Sean Tucker ran for 53 yards. But, we need to stop Breece Hall. We need to make sure that Will McDonald doesn't get anywhere close to the quarterback, while also making sure that if the Jets are gonna beat us, Justin Fields needs to throw the ball and stay in the pocket. If he starts getting out and scrambling, that's where things can get a little worrisome. Otherwise, when looking at the player comparisons, it's no question. I mean, by every single metric, who the heck do the Jets even have that's worth talking about outside of Breece Hall and Will McDonald IV? You tell me, because I've been looking at it up and down, left and right, and trying to say, hey, we're better here, we're better there, we're better there. Like, yeah, they have our former kicker, Nick Folk, but he's old. And, they're guys. I mean, there's a reason why they're 2-7. There is. And that's a massive part of it, and just because I always do every single week, break down the quarterbacks. Justin Fields versus Drake May. Fields was called up by his owner and has played in 8 games this season, whereas Drake May's obviously played in all 10. Fields has thrown for 1,143 yards. Drake May's thrown for a perfect 2,555 yards. Justin Fields surprisingly has a higher completion percentage than I would have given him credit for at 63.5%, whereas Drake May is still over 70 at 71.7%, nearly 72. Justin Fields has 7 touchdown passes to 10 interceptions, and Drake May has got 19 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Whereas Fields' passer rating is at 90.6. No, that is definitely not correct. My apologies on that. Actually, no, I stand corrected. His passer rating is at 90.6. See, I did do my homework, guys. I wasn't lying to you. Whereas Drake May's passer rating is at 113.9, and then Justin Fields' QBR is at 35.7. Whereas Drake May is at 72.9. I mean, Drake May is better than Justin Fields by every single metric. There's no two questions about that. There really isn't. And then when looking at the offensive and defensive stats, you have the Jets offense has the worst pass yards per game, throwing for 143.8 yards, which, again, is worse than the NFL, whereas New England's defense allows 227 pass yards per game, ranking 21st in the NFL. You got the Jets' rushing attack ranks 4th in the NFL at 141.8 rush yards per game, whereas the Patriots' defense is the best in the NFL at allowing rush yards per game, only allowing 79.2 yards. Whereas the Jets' offense is 25th in scoring in terms of points per game at 21.7, and New England's defense only allows 19.2 points per game, ranking them 6th in the NFL. Now, when you see the other side, The Patriots offense is 8th in the NFL, throwing for 241.4 yards per game. And the Jets defense is top 10, ranked 8th at allowing 190.8 pass yards per game. The Patriots rushing attack is 16th in the NFL at 117.7 rush yards per game. The Jets defense allows 138.2 rush yards per game, which ranks 25th in the NFL. And then when it comes to scoring, the Patriots are 8th at points per game at 26.5, and the Jets are 26th, allowing 26.8 points per game. And then to even take it a step further, when you want to look at the takeaways, the Patriots have 11 takeaways and 12 giveaways, which is right around average in the NFL at -1. But the Jets, meanwhile, have one takeaway via a fumble, which their one takeaway is lowest in the NFL. And they have 11 giveaways, which is -10, which is worst in the NFL. This team gives the ball to their opponent every single game. We should have at least a single takeaway in this game tonight and should win the turnover battle, even though our last couple of games, we've lost the turnover battle, yet we still won, which goes to show how much confidence I have in this team. When you lose the turnover battle, which is something that you shouldn't get accustomed to, but the few times you lose the turnover battle and you still win, that's a huge, huge bonus for you. Now, what am I expecting in this game? I'm expecting a good win. I'm expecting the Patriots to come out, to play hard, to take care of business. And yes, do I want them to blow the doors off the Jets? Of course I do. Is it a divisional game which always carries, a couple extra punches from the other team? Absolutely it does. Even when the teams that you're playing sucks and you're the best team. How many times did the Dolphins suck and yet they always gave us a game down in Miami, right? How many times did the Jets suck yet they beat us? Or, again, a perfect example, when we kicked their ass near the end of the season back in 2010, we get the bye week. They play us in the divisional round with Sanchez, and they beat us. God forbid that happens, but again, it just goes to show divisional matchups mean something. It's kind of like playing, SEC versus SEC, Big Ten versus Big Ten, stuff like that. They're always going to be hard-fought matches for the most part, no matter the discrepancy. But, of course, in the NFL, the discrepancy is much, much smaller. Otherwise, I just want to see Drake May come out, take care of the ball, and play like the MVP quarterback that he's been playing. There's no Sauce Gardner. There's no Quinnen Williams. I think those Jet stats, the defensive stats about pass yards per game, I think it's because of Sauce Gardner. He's been playing. So, again, otherwise, I do think that Aaron Glenn was a good defensive guy. I think that they are going to game plan for Drake May. I think looking at this Bucs game, Drake May struggled when they dropped 8 into coverage versus blitzing them. Now, are they going to drop 8 every single time? Are they going to blitz every single time? And guess what? If they drop 8, you take Travion Henderson and pound them right up the middle. You know what I mean? Yeah, I heard that too. That's, you run the ball. When they drop 8, you run the ball. When they bring everybody, you get rid of the ball faster. You don't run, you throw. So overall, it's going to be an interesting game. I do expect the Patriots to run away with this, which is why I have the prediction being 35-6. I think the Jets are going to move the ball into field goal territory a couple of times, probably hit a couple cheap field goals. Otherwise, the Patriots are just going to score. They're going to go down. They're going to score. They're going to get the points. And this game should be over pretty quickly. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a fun game. Really, really fun game. So moving on from one team that has won 7 in a row to the other team that has won 7 in a row, your Boston Bruins are on a heck of a win streak right now. Going 7-0 and basically owning the Toronto Maple Leafs. The fact that, again, the Toronto Maple Leafs were supposed to be a team that is the best team in the Atlantic Division, hell, even in the conference, is kind of laughable at this point. Because the Bruins are tied with the Canadiens as number 1 in the Atlantic Division in terms of points. And the Maple Leafs, meanwhile, they are second to last with the Florida Panthers at 17 points. Just ahead of the Sabres, who have 14. And Pasta, in this game, by the way, we won back-to-back against Toronto. I thought for sure the second game against Toronto, which was the other night, we were going to lose. But in that game, Pasta scored his 400th goal. The whole team came out to cheer with him. And it's funny, people are all up in arms because, hey, look at the team camaraderie. That's great. It's awesome. Versus other people who are like, what are we doing? It's goal number 400. Like, he hasn't broken any records. He hasn't broken any team records. Like, really? Really? And I kind of agree with both. Like, yeah, I think it's great. I'm not going to get all, angry about it or, kind of, for lack of a better word, I'm not going to say it on here, but just up in arms over it, which I think it's fine. You can say that. Otherwise, yeah, I agree that there have been multiple 400 goal achievements over the last year and a half, and the rest of the bench never came off for them. So it's one of those things where, yeah, you can say, oh, but he's so loved and his teammates love him. And it's like, okay, but he's the alternate captain. He's not the captain. Not saying he should be the captain or that he shouldn't be the captain. All I'm saying is that it's 400. It's a hell of a milestone. Seriously, congratulations, Pasternak, for scoring 400. That's a huge accomplishment, especially in this, in this era of goal scoring. But the whole team coming out like that, like I said, I'm 50-50. I see both sides, and I agree with both sides, to be honest with you. Otherwise, at the start of the year, I wasn't necessarily on the bandwagon to tank. Was I talking about the Bruins tanking to do better and get a higher draft pick? I was. Because we sucked. We started off 3-0 and then went 1-7 in our next 8, only to now rattle off 7 straight wins, which I think is hilarious. After I came on here and said that this team sucks, basically. So it's like, I say this team sucks, they go on to win 7 straight. But the big talk is obviously the number 1 overall draft pick, Gavin McKenna. Or soon to be number 1 overall draft pick that everyone's predicting that this kid's going to be the guy coming out of Penn State. And, there's been a lot of conversation going around saying, well, how should we rebuild the Bruins? Because we suck at drafting, yet we still want to win. Because if we don't have a hockey season, then it's just, it's no fun. It's boring. It's kind of like what we've done with the Red Sox the last handful of years before last year. For the last 4 years before last year, by the time July hit, we were all dying to talk Patriots, to say, oh my God, training camp is finally here. Thank God we can talk about something other than the Red Sox, who suck, you know? And I don't like doing that. It's not fun. It's not good. And also, to not have a hockey season in a hockey town. Like, we're a hockey town. And to not have a hockey season, it's like, great. You know, what am I going to do this winter? You know? The Celtics sure as hell aren't giving me the warm and fuzzies right now. Even though they did, they did get the win last night. But now the fact the Bruins have won 7 straight, the $1 million question is, how are we building this team? Should we tank? Should we suck to get the number 1 overall pick? Which, again, Montreal has sucked for a very long time. And now they've finally gotten it together where they're currently sitting atop the Atlantic Division tied with us. You know? So, to me, I'm kind of like debating whether or not we should suck in order to build that perennial contender, or we should compete time and time, year after year, and try to build through the middle of the draft. You know, again, that's the $1 million question. And teams have done both. I mean, don't forget, we were able to stay a perennial contender because we traded away Phil Kessel, got Toronto's draft pick, and then took Tyler Seguin with that draft pick. We got a first rounder and Fraser Minton from Toronto for Brandon Carlo last trade deadline. And currently Toronto, if the season were to end and the draft were to start up, Toronto holds the 7th overall draft pick. Yes, that pick is top 5 protected, but if you get 6th, 7th, 8th, I mean, you're sitting pretty. You have a later round draft pick, your own, because you didn't make the playoffs. But then also, you have Toronto's draft pick, which is top 10. So you can you can keep building. And that's why I thought the last trade deadline was a great trade deadline from Don Sweeney. Getting multiple first-round picks, getting some guys that, hey, maybe potentially you could sell off this upcoming trade deadline in order to get more draft capital. And don't get me wrong, we all know Don Sweeney's track record when it comes to drafting. It sucks. It's trash. It's garbage. We all know that. But the one thing the guy does know how to do is make trades, to make NHL trades to get NHL talent back that can help this team. Now, does it help come playoff time? Not necessarily. Hampus Lindholm has usually been a ghost. He'll be there all regular season, but then come playoff time, he is invisible. Just one of the many guys that Don Sweeney's gone out and traded for that has not shown up when it matters most. Otherwise, I do think it's possible to do both. Now, there are going to be seasons you're going to have to take a little bit of a step back, but that doesn't mean you have to suck necessarily. You know, last year was our setback. And with the way this team is playing, with the way they're playing for Marco Sturm after he called them out over the 7-2 loss against Ottawa a couple weeks ago, it is possible for this team to come out and play and be one of the top 3 teams in the Atlantic Division. I think that it is a true possibility for this team. And it would also be nice if Toronto sucks and, you know, hey, there you go. So, again, I don't like to suck in draft because maybe you want to call me spoiled, but I'm always expecting a playoff contender. I want a playoff contender. And it's possible, but that means you have to hit on draft picks. You have to make sure that you're not signing bum free agents like David Backus or Matt Bolesky to absurdly high contracts, especially with how strict of a salary cap league the NHL is. And so otherwise, yeah, it's possible. It's possible in that league to do both and to maintain. But like I said, it's all about how you draft. At the end of the day, you need to replenish the pipeline. And then if you have a decent enough pipeline, you could sell off pieces like Urho Vakanainen to get a Hampus Lindholm back. You could sell off an Urho Vakanainen to get a first rounder back or something stupid. You know, like some team is just desperate and looking for a young piece, and you have identified that this guy is not that good, but they love him. Hey, let's up the price a little bit. And if they're too stupid to bite, or if they are stupid enough to bite, I should say, then you pounce, you steal that first round pick. That guy goes off, has a mediocre career at best, and you have a brand new first round pick. I'm not saying Urho Vakanainen's worth a first round. It's just a hyperbole. You know what I'm trying to say. Otherwise, the Bruins are crushing it. And I'm very happy about that. I mean, hell, how can you not be? You know, I know it's early, but one of the things I always say, especially for these sports with long seasons, the Bruins, Celtics, and Red Sox, you're not going to win the championship at the start of the year, but you sure as hell can lose it at the start of the year. Because if you don't get off to a good start, that means you're going to have to make it up in the back end of the season. Whereas you get off to a good start, yeah, there might be some games you might, you know what? Hey, you need your rest. We're going to give you that. We're going to give that to you. So relax. You don't need to be pressured into this game. You know, that's totally cool. And right now, being, 11-7, 22 points in the NHL currently. You know, they're atop the Atlantic Division, and that's all that matters. So now moving on to a very interesting topic that literally just popped up today. If we needed any more proof on how petty the NFL owners are, here is reason 1,652,731. And I say that because the NFL filed a grievance against the NFLPA to stop their annual report cards, which ironically is spearheaded by the guy that we're playing tonight, Woody Johnson. And it's spearheaded by him, but it's not just him. Now, the obvious question would be, why would the NFL want to do away with the NFLPA's, the Player Association's own report card and their grades? Can you take a guess? Comment down below what you think. Otherwise, why do you think they want to get rid of that? Simple. Lack of accountability. It's what it is. It's the lack of accountability, because you have every single sports talk radio show that isn't bought by the NFL talking about how these owners are cheap, basically. You know? That's it. You know, they're so cheap. And Robert Kraft, as I've pointed out multiple times, has proven to be like that in certain areas. Robert Kraft is one of the guys who's in favor of eliminating these report cards. Just FYI. Because when looking at the grades over the last two seasons, and these were the 2023 grades, of course, for the 2023 season that was shown in 24 as The one on the right is obviously the 24 season that was produced earlier this year. But treatment of families, F- to a C+. Food and cafeteria, B- to a C. Nutritionist, B- to a B. And then just going down, weight room, B- in 23 to an F in 2024. You have team travel, B- to an F, from 23 to 24. You have these guys who, again, are actually being held accountable now, who are proving that, hey, the NFL players are saying something, not through their representatives, not through, the media. No, they are going and making their cases known. And you want to know how I know that? In this ESPN article that was written today saying NFL filed grievance against NFLPA to stop report cards, it was reported that this survey, the 2024 grade, the past survey that was released earlier this year, was done by 1,695 players, which, if you account of the 53-man roster for all 32 teams, that is every single player except one had a say on all of those issues that were just listed. So basically, every single player got to speak their truth. Not speak their truth. I hate that phrase. It's speak their mind as to what they like and what they want and how their team can improve. And so as I'm going through the article, part of what they point out is the fact that there is a joint survey or a joint report card that is supposed to be done every 3 years. The funny part is that joint report card hasn't been done since 2015. It has been 10 years. 3 report cards should have been made available. Maybe not to us, but it maybe was to them. Otherwise, they are reporting that it hasn't been done since 2015. And that joint survey is between the NFL reps and the NFLPA's reps. And they meet confidentially. So my question is, how many reps are doing this, are meeting? Is it one for all 32 teams and one for all 32 owners? Is it, do you have layers to these representatives from the NFLPA? Are they, do these 32 teams, like, again, is it layers? Like you have the senior representative and then a bunch of the lower reps, something like that. And with those reps, again, what matters to certain players is not going to matter to other players in terms of the hierarchy on these listed, right? So, for instance, right, treatment of families is going to have a higher value placed on players who have kids and want their kids at the stadium with their wives at the games. They're going to place a higher emphasis on the treatment of families versus, let's say, the locker room. Whereas other guys, probably single, are going to look at the locker room as a place they can go hang out, they can chill. They want a lounge. They want a big open space. They want a couple of TVs. They want this, that, and the other. They don't want to be tight-knit and, bouncing into each other every time they put on shoulder pads. So that matters, which is why the fact that this NFLPA survey has basically every single player showing what they want and what they believe is best compared to others actually means more than what the NFL joint survey, does, because it's only between the representatives of both sides. And then in this joint survey, this is the other thought that I had. In the joint survey with the owners, what are they questioning? What are the topics being discussed, right? Is it as in-depth as the NFLPA's report cards, treatment of families, food and cafeteria, nutritionist, dietitian, locker room, training staff, training room, weight room, strength coaches, team travel, head coach, ownership? Is it that in-depth? Are they asking all of those questions? Or is it more generic? And I say that because in the article it says, quote, NFL and union already agree to conduct a joint survey of players and this is the source's words, so the article says, quote, NFL and union already agree to conduct a joint survey of players. Then there's quotations in the article, so from a source that says, quote, regarding the adequacy of player care and other relevant topics, end quote, for both. So what is adequacy of player care? Are we talking about treatment of families? Are we talking about the training room? Are we talking about the doctors, the athletic trainers? Are we talking about the medical care that these guys get outside of football or during the season? Or they have to be in the facility to get? Is that their only thing they're concerned about? Or are they concerned about the adequacy of player care? Okay, how are we treating you? What do you think of the weight room? What do you think of the food that we're serving you? What do you think of how your families are being treated? Can your wives sit there in the box and watch you while they feel comfortable with how your kids are being taken care of in the kiddie room, right? Are those questions is it more in depth like that? Or is it just basic generic, hey, are we taking good care of you? Is that, do you like this team? Do you like, playing here? Is everything cool? Oh, everything's great. Awesome. Love to hear it. All right, next question. Like, what? You're not going to get any real answers from that. Also, what the hell do they mean by relevant topics? What does relevant mean? Again, are we going in depth? Are we breaking down the parking situation? Are we breaking down the fact that the field is made out of turf and not natural grass? Are we talking about, the food, the dietitian, the training room, the training staff? Do you like the athletic trainer? Is he a good fit? How is the owner? Does the owner treat you well? Does the head coach treat you well? I mean, those are really in-depth, relevant questions, but they could just say, hey, do you like playing for the team? Do you like your team? Do you like the area? Oh, great, done. And that's it. And you're not going to get anything. Also, all 1,696 players are not going to have the ability to voice what is important to them. That's the massive thing. And that's why I actually support the NFLPA doing their annual report cards. But the owners are upset because a couple of things. First, they're saying that this violates, quote, just want to make sure I'm, doing this right. In the article, it says, quote, it violates a CBA clause that says NFL owners and the union must, and extra quotes, use reasonable efforts to curtail public comments by club personnel or players which express criticism of any club, its coach, or its operation and policy. So it's written into the rules that these guys have to have, they have to watch themselves basically in what they say when speaking out against the club, its coach, or the policy or how the team is run. Okay? And they're also upset because they are saying that it's just general grades. There's no specific feedback given because it's just straight letter grades, as I've pointed out to you on this slide right here. And then you see at the very bottom, by the way, ownership in 23 got a D plus, and ownership in 24 got a D. Just FYI. Otherwise, they're saying that there's nothing specific. Well, how about this? Because we're Boston and because we're Patriots fans, I'm going to read you when you go to the NFLPA's website on the report card from 2025, which is for the 2024 season. I'm just going to read you the overview. Starting from the second paragraph, after receiving an F- last year for their treatment of players' families, the team made immediate improvements, including hiring a staff member to manage family services and adding a family room and daycare during games. These changes were received, and players believe that family support is now the team's biggest strength. However, key facility issues remain, including the need to renovate the building, a cramped weight room, and outdated locker rooms. It is anticipated that those issues will be fixed when the new facility opens in 2026. Additionally, team travel remains a significant concern. Only 39% of players feel they have comfortable amount of space on flights when traveling to games. The plane is dated, it lacks Wi-Fi, and still has ashtrays in seats. Is that generic for you? Or were there specific concerns mounted in there? Because to me, there were some specific concerns. And then when you break down, let's look at the dietitian. They got a B. So the Patriots got a B. And it says 82% of the players report that they get an individualized nutrition plan, ranking the Patriots 19th out of 32 teams. The players feel their team dietitian is moderately accessible, ranking 29th out of 32. So that to me says, all right, well, we need our dietitian to be on call more often, or hire another one to be on call. You know, what do they want? Do they want okay, our dietitian sucks because I try to reach out at 3 a.m. when I'm drinking booze and I want Mickey D's and, I'm trying to make sure that this fits right into my nutrition plan. Do they want that, or is that adequate enough? Because to me, that's kind of adequate enough. And then if you want, you can talk with the team rep and say, hey, what do you mean by this? And they can break it down even further. To me, I don't know how you could not see that. It's clear in black and white what the needs of the team are. Yes, is Mr. Kraft and the Patriots progressing and, trying to better the team grades? Of course he is. You see it right in the treatment of families. Oh, where is it? Oh, it's right there. Right in the treatment of families, taking it from an F- 2 years ago to a C+. Still not great. There's still guys who probably would like a little bit more done. But everything, it looks like that they're going to be building a brand new facility, which will hopefully probably house partially, family members and stuff like that for their children, so they don't have to be concerned. The wives can go off and watch their husbands play, on the field. They can feel comfortable with the kids, this, that, and the other. So the treatment of families is working or is improving. Other things are clearly improving. In the first paragraph, I wasn't trying to leave that out on purpose, but I was just trying to speed it up a little bit. Kraft announced a $50 million investment in a new facility adjacent to the stadium, which broke ground in December and is expected to open in 2026. See, things are improving, but they're going to talk about it as if it was last year, because guess what? It was last year. And while it's working, that doesn't necessarily mean it's completely finished. And so the other obvious piece I think that this comes down to is one simple thing that we all know. At the end of the day, this comes down to money. It's all about the money and how cheap these owners are. And you have other owners who are great. You have some owners who are cheap. It's clear as day. They all want improvement. They all want to be liked, loved, and favored. But when you're not putting it back in to the team, when you have college football programs that have state-of-the-art, brand new facilities every 3 years, and you're going to an NFL team that hasn't had a brand new facility in 25 years, like, what are we doing? This is the professionals. And when it comes down to it, an article came out in 2024 by Sportico saying that the owners make enough money to pay for the players due to the hard salary cap and even the benefit payments combined before the owners even cash the checks from sponsorships, they sell tickets, or they even sell one freaking beer. The TV revenue that goes to the owners is already enough to pay for the players and to pay for the benefit payments of those players combined before they do anything else, selling tickets, sponsorships, or anything else. And yet they are still worried about money. They are still worried about things that, you know, they're just wealth and all these other things. And again, I can't speak to these, you know, to who they are as people. All I can speak to is the actions that they do. And the actions are clear, at least from this, that the Patriots want better things in a lot of areas. And Robert Kraft seems to be on the right track. He is opening up a brand new adjacent facility. He's already improved the treatment of families. And I'm pretty damn sure that Robert Kraft would want to be on this, be an A on this list. Otherwise, it just sucks that these guys who are being called out, and rightfully so, and justifiably so, they are too chicken to be held accountable for their lack of investment. And thinking that their investment into the players, which, again, we all know the contracts are extremely filled with, which are not fully guaranteed contracts, so just leave it at that. You know, that it's all about, they're like, oh, see, we're investing in you, and you can do X, Y, and Z with that money. Or you could help the team out, probably write it off as a tax benefit. And there you go. Bing, bang, boom. Now we have a dietitian on full service. You got a brand new room that's got several babysitters that can watch the kids, and everything's going to be cool and great, and everyone can relax. The family room is perfect. It's pristine. You know, the training room is massive. You get the brand new equipment. You have plenty of room. These guys are not tiny guys. They're huge. So they're just so freaking petty. As I said at the start of this segment, this is reason 1,652,731 of how petty some of these NFL owners are. And you want to know why I just threw in the word some and not all? Because in the very last line of this article on ESPN.com, it says one owner told ESPN that, quote, the only owners who don't care for the report cards are the ones who get the subpar grades, end quote. Not all, but a decent amount of petty. And of the owners that look petty in this article, the bottom 5 teams, You have Dave Tepper of the Carolina Panthers, Michael Bidwell of the Arizona Cardinals, Art Rooney of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Obviously, this is being run by Woody Johnson of the Jets, and Robert Kraft of the New England Patriots. All 5 are ranked at the lowest on the report cards in terms of ownership grades, and they don't like that. So it's wild. It's a wild story that just broke today. I was stunned when I saw it, and I was happy that I did because I got to go through it, dissect it, and give my thoughts on it. So, listen, I want to thank you all for sticking around, man. This was a really, really big show. And, hey, we talked Patriots, Bruins, and NFL owners. So, it was a lot of fun. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Hope you got a lot out of it. Also, don't forget, please give a like, share, subscribe. I'm over on Instagram, Boston Sports Summit. I'm on X, BOS Sports Summit. You can just look up Boston Sports Summit. You'll probably find me. I'm also on YouTube. And if you could, just please, just give a quick subscription to YouTube. It's free. It's a click of a button. You don't even have to turn on the notifications. If you want to, even better. I'd really appreciate that. Otherwise, just a quick subscription would be extremely grateful. And to everyone who is already subscribed and following, I am really thankful for you guys. You're the reason why I keep doing this, and I love talking about Boston sports. I mean, it's such a fun place to be from, fun, sports city to talk about. It's great. And also, don't forget the Grid Network, bunch of great content creators, bunch of different topics, bunch of different sports. I've had a few on over the almost 2 years now that I've been doing this show. And we'll have some more on soon. So, listen, thank you again so much. Hope you have a great weekend. And, hey, Pats kicking off in about an hour. So, we're going to watch that. It's going to be a blast. Thank you for tuning in, and God bless. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody.